Hello and welcome to Little Known Stocks, the show where I try to prove that being boring and doing your research will make you money. Now, today I want to talk about Bigg Digital Assets. And on the face of it, Bigg Digital Assets appear to be a crypto exchange. Nothing too special there, although crypto has been booming recently. But when we look closer, there's a lot more to this company, and really I want to go into it. So Bigg Digital Assets have two main products. The first one being Netcoins, which is their cryptocurrency exchange, and they're competing with the likes of Voyager, Coinbase. They're very small at the moment but growing rapidly, and we'll come on to that in a minute. The second product, and the one that I want to talk more about today, is the Blockchain Intelligence Group, and it's actually a few different products, but really this is about intelligence within blockchain and providing particularly government agencies with information. And maybe I'm making a bit of a leap, but I really believe that some of Joe Biden's recent announcements and plans are going to really work out very well for this company in the long term. So we'll go into that later in the video. So very brief analysis of the fundamentals of this stock. They are a $256 million market cap, which is very small. They're relatively new and they took a massive run up recently, but if you bought near the peak here at around $3.76, you've been absolutely pummeled recently as we now sit to $1.81. So really could be a really opportune moment to invest. This has been virtually cut in half recently, but certainly way more significant than it was in early January. So way up on 3 months or so ago. So over the last month, I've received a couple of really interesting emails from Bigg Digital Assets. The first one being their subsidiary Netcoins, and it's important to remember this isn't the total business, this is their subsidiary, announced quarterly revenue growth of 4.4 times quarter over quarter, so not even year over year, quarter over quarter. So that's really substantial. Second one, Bigg Digital Assets subsidiary Netcoins, again not the whole business, announces revenue grew 31% month over month in April 2021. So not just Q1, a continued growth, and they are really growing at a rapid rate. It's worth noting that they haven't published their quarterly report. This was driving a bit of concern, but there's just essentially been a delay, and they're delayed because they're growing too fast and they're being audited. So, not a problem for me there. The share price dipped yesterday. I don't know if it was anything to do with this, but certainly this assuages any concerns that you would have over that. Now, it's worth noting as well, just an aside, if you are going to look for Bigg Digital Assets, you won't find them, and they won't have their financial results on their website. They won't have it listing like they do with SEC because they're a Canadian company. So if you do want to find it, you need to go to this CDAR website, or that's the one that I use, and you can just search for Bigg Digital Assets and all the filings will be here. It's annoying they're not in date order, so you may have to scroll down to find some other more recent ones based on what type of filing it is. So obviously there's huge growth, but the numbers don't quite tell the full story, and I just wanted to do a bit of forensic examining of the numbers and really get into it. So let's take a look. It's worth noting firstly, they're talking purely in revenues, which is a bit of a concern maybe, but I expect they're spending massive amounts on advertising to grow the platform. So earnings at this point may not be relevant. It's all about growth, and certainly those numbers are encouraging enough that we can, at the moment, not think too much about earnings. Second point is, it's in Canadian dollars. So when they're telling you big numbers, you just need to remember that it's smaller when you convert it to USD. That's really important, so you don't misquote the figures. And what I've done here is I've taken the green numbers that we know to be true, and I've worked backwards. So they've given us April, and they gave us some numbers for Q1, yes, but they didn't give us this revenue figure. And first, versus their own prior estimates, I've calculated it to be 3.24 million Canadian dollars. Their estimate previously put it at 3.5 million, and they do say projected here. So I think they've slightly missed their projection even, but no worries as it's growing so substantially. And they've given us 4.4 times, so I've worked that out to be 772,000 Canadian dollars. They've also given us April numbers and they've given us February numbers. So if I look at the April numbers, they told us that they grew 31% in April, which works out to be $1.55 million. They also told us what their February numbers were. Now, working back, 1.55 million in April, working back works out at $1.183 million in March. And that was actually a decline February versus March. So if my numbers are correct, and I'm not saying that they are, then that was actually a slight decline in revenue. And what that tells me is their business is highly based on the volume that goes through. So although they're growing massively, so is the crypto craze, and people have real FOMO at the moment for crypto. It's possible that these extreme growth numbers are driven just by FOMO in the market, and there is a risk that they may slip back or just stay flat if that suddenly ends and people stop trading crypto so much. So that's one thing to note as well. The last thing is the revenue growth. So I've done a few analyses here, and as we haven't got earnings per share, we're going to have to do the price to sales ratio. So just for a reference point, for a growing company, price to sales of 10 to 12 is good. Obviously they've seen growth more explosive than most companies that we've seen. In fact, almost all companies that I've seen. So maybe we can give them some slack. But converting to US dollars, so I'm going to use Yahoo Finance to show the market cap. Worth noting, this is currency in USD, so not comparable again to what they're reporting. Market cap $261 million. Okay, good. What I'm going to do, I'm going to take that market cap and I'm going to assume no further revenue growth. And that gives me for the full year $14.4 million. Canadian 11.65 US. Current market cap 261 million, give or take. That gives me a price to sales ratio of 22.4. Now that's really high, so there is a risk if they don't continue to grow at the rate that they are. 22.4 is very, very high, but also worth noting, this is only Netcoin. This isn't Bigg Digital Assets, so this is only one part of their business, which is very new but growing very quickly. But if you start to look at even half of this growth maintained, they've got an average of 27% here. So I've assumed a 15% month over month growth. That then takes us to a massive $44 million for the full year. And that puts us suddenly under 6. So then we start to look extremely healthy. And then if we continue this compound growth rate of close to 30%, I've assumed 30% here, we get to 2.2. So we're looking extremely cheap then. And really, it's just a case of how far can this company grow. So how much can they grow? Well, there are 3 ways they can grow revenue. The first one is more users, and it's worth noting that monthly active users have grown 37% month on month in April, so that's still growing at a rapid rate, which is really good news. Second one is the amount people are spending and the amount of transactions. So the revenue is also growing, and the 31%, people are spending actually slightly less than the number of people are growing. So people are coming on board at a faster rate, which is good. So it's actually real people growth rather than just people trading more. And then the third is smaller, but obviously they take a proportion of the transaction. So if Bitcoin or any of the altcoins prices go up or down, then they also gain from that as well. But they're basically trading at above 1% margin, so that's probably much smaller in the grand scheme of things than the volume and the people growth. What's also worth noting is Canada is not a big country, so 38 million people in Canada versus 328 in the US. Obviously with such a small market cap still, that's no concern whatsoever. It's worth noting, I've looked at a few websites, a few review websites, and I found around 14 exchanges in Canada, so there's a lot of competition out there. Netcoin seems to be up there in terms of size, and obviously it's growing rapidly, but this CoinSquare seems to be the largest by some margin. They are trading a lot of coins though. They've got good trading fees, they've got good payment options. But one thing, come on guys, is it 2006? No, for smartphone, no mobile app. That is a massive opportunity missed, and hopefully they add that soon. I've seen a couple of websites mention that there's no app, so hopefully that's something they can develop in the short term. So it's worth noting that one of the things that Netcoins hope happen is that the Canadian exchanges become a lot more regulated, and they are actually regulated even though they don't need to be. They're the only exchange that are currently regulated. So what they're hoping for is that the government steps up, regulates this sector, and that a lot of their competitors fall away and they gain their market share almost instantly overnight. So let's forget about the exchanges. There's a lot of those out there, and you know, it's a great thing, it's a growing market, but what I'm really interested in this company is the Blockchain Intelligence Group. Now this is a game changer in my opinion. It's not driven much revenue to date, but I think this is really where they could differentiate themselves, particularly if their exchange doesn't take off. I think they're protected from another angle and have some diversification. So Blockchain Intelligence Group, they do two things. The first one is Clue. That's the Qualitative Law Enforcement Unified Edge. Now what does this do? Well, they can basically track Bitcoin transactions. They can track it across 8 currencies currently. So all the largest currencies, they can say, okay, we've had some Bitcoin stolen. They can trace it, they can see where it's gone, which wallets it's been deposited in, and they can help law enforcement track down rogue Bitcoin. They can use it to find Bitcoin or crypto that's been used in transactions that are illegal. So they're apparently liaising with US law enforcement, Hong Kong law enforcement, and they've got a number of agencies across the world who are looking into that. It's worth noting that they are one of 4 companies currently doing this. So really tight space. They're the only publicly listed company doing this, and they mentioned that some of their competitors are valued at $1 billion. So just for this alone, there's a huge market potentially. Not necessarily yet, but potentially. But even that one isn't the one that I'm really interested in. I'm interested in this Bitrank Verified. So Bitrank Verified is basically a credit score for your Bitcoin accounts, which is really unique and something to get your head around. But essentially, it looks at people's Bitcoin wallets and Bitcoin accounts and really gives it a risk based on how is it linked to any wallets that have had dubious transactions. How is it trading? Is it trading in very high volumes? Is there any risk? Does it seem to be dodgy, in other words? And so that's a really new technology and something which is really exciting. But if you pair both of those together, you have the law enforcement and you have the financial sector. I think we need to talk about Joe Biden. So Joe Biden recently revealed that he wanted to invest $80 billion in more audits through the IRS to make sure that the rich were paying their taxes. Rich corporations, rich individuals, whoever. What are the rich doing at the moment? Well, alternative asset classes are, as you know, a hedge for stock market times of crisis. We know the stock market isn't doing so well at the moment. We've seen big earnings beats and nothing's happened. And there's massive growth in crypto. So there is a massive potential that wealthy individuals, people that are going to be audited, will be stashing their money in crypto. And it's known as an area where it can maybe be a bit more hidden, maybe hidden from the tax man. The IRS and the audit services are going to need something like Clue or something like Blockchain Intelligence Group are using. So they've announced that they've signed a $320,000 contract with the United States federal government agency. This is 1 year contract, small value, but they're working with US federal government agents. And it's also worth noting that their COO, is a former Homeland Security investigator. So he knows that world. He's worked with government agencies. They're talking to US agencies, and we know that Biden famously likes to buy US, but these are a Canadian company, but they're already in there. They're already working at the forefront of this technology. So that is really, really exciting to me. And it's only going to become more prevalent over the next years as, you know, people try to hide their currency in crypto, and law enforcement agencies get more and more involved in this really expert area that is very high investment to develop. It took them 5 or 6 years, they've said, to develop this technology. So anyone starting out now is well behind the game, and it's just going to become more and more prevalent. So Bigg Digital Assets, do I like them? Yes, I like them a lot. I really like their blockchain intelligence, which gives them another edge, and I think will really protect them against maybe losing out in terms of the exchange battle, although it seems like they're winning the exchange battle at the moment. I really like the compliance and the fact that they've gone ahead and got themselves regulated. They're really thinking about it. They're acting in a very intelligent way, which I always like to see in a company, and thinking ahead, which I love in companies. So very, very strong. I also think there's big opportunities. Please develop an app. I mean, come on, please develop an app. That's a massive upside if they can do that. And lastly, I think, you know, they're still in a very, very small market. Hopefully they can break out of that market and look at Europe, the US, wherever, and really grow from there. They've got some great technology behind them. They just need to expand it and utilize it, which I'm sure they will do going forward. Obviously, there is a risk tied to crypto, but I think this is one of the few crypto plays that you can really diversify yourself very widely in, which is really good news. One thing people will say I forgot to mention is that they own 300 Bitcoin, so worth currently around $15 million or so. I haven't forgotten. It's just that they use that daily, so they basically, rather than wait for the blockchain to roll over, they use that to transact, to make transactions much quicker. The way I see it is if they become much more popular, they require much more Bitcoin for operations. So essentially their pool needs to grow along with their revenue stream. So in a way I see that as almost stuck cash flow. They need it to operate the business. I don't see it as a liquid asset that they can use. So yeah, that's why I didn't dwell too much on that. So that's all I've got time for. Shorter video, but you know, companies starting out, not a huge amount of information out there, and a lot of the exchange things people will know about already, so I didn't want to cover that in too much detail. But if you do think I've missed anything, please let me know down below. I'd love it if you commented, like, subscribe, that would be great. Thank you very much, and have a good day.